My mother-in-law tried to ruin my wedding. I made sure she didn't even make it to the reception. I catch liars for a living. It's what I do. I look at spreadsheets, bank statements, and tax returns to find the stories people are desperate to erase. I work as a forensic auditor for a firm that handles corporate fraud, meaning I spend my life tracing discrepancies and finding the devil in the details. You'd think having a human lie detector for a brain would make my personal life easier, but love has a funny way of making you blind to the red flags waving right in your face. It's probably why I'm currently married to the most incredible, resilient woman in the world, my wife, 29 female, and why her mother is currently sitting in a state penitentiary wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of the designer gown she thought she'd be wearing to our wedding. This isn't just a story about a nightmare mother-in-law. This is about a systematic, calculated attempt to dismantle my financial future and my marriage, orchestrated by a woman who believes the world exists solely to serve her whims. My wife is a pediatric nurse. She is soft, empathetic, and kind to a fault. She was raised, or rather conditioned, by her mother, 50s female, to be a prop. To the mother, my wife wasn't a person. She was an accessory, something to be dressed up and paraded around to make the mother look like the benevolent matriarch of a perfect family. The mother is a socialite in a town that is far too small for her massive ego. She treats service staff like furniture, views rules as suggestions for poor people, and has never heard the word no without interpreting it as a personal attack. When I proposed, the mother was ecstatic. Not because she liked me, she made it very clear early on that I was too technical, lacking in pedigree, and boring, but because a wedding meant a show. It was her opportunity to play the role of the century. The entitlement started the moment the ring was on my wife's finger. We sat down for dinner at her house to discuss the budget. I'm frugal by nature. I had saved significantly, and I wanted to pay for the wedding ourselves, specifically to avoid any strings attached. I knew how she operated. Money is control. We were barely through the appetizers when I laid it out. We want something intimate, I said. Maybe 80 people. The historic library downtown has a great event space. We're budgeting $50,000 max. The mother laughed. It was a cold, dismissive sound that made the wine in my glass ripple. 80 people, she laughed. That's a dinner party, not a wedding. I have 80 people on my Christmas card list alone. No, we are doing the country club. I've already spoken to the board. We'd prefer to plan it ourselves, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You can't possibly afford the standard we require, she interrupted, waving her hand as if swatting away a fly. I'll handle the planning. You two just show up and look pretty. I'll hire the planner, I'll make the deposits, and you can reimburse me for your share later. My wife looked at me. Her eyes were wide, pleading. She had spent 29 years trying to keep the peace, trying to avoid the explosions that came whenever her mother was challenged. Just let her have this, her eyes said. It's easier. I compromised. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Fine, I said, looking the mother in the eye, but I want to see every contract. I want to vet every vendor. And the budget is capped at $50,000 from us. Anything over that is on you. She agreed. Too quickly. That should have been my first clue. 2 weeks later, the mother introduced us to Isabella. She claimed Isabella was an exclusive high-end wedding planner who only worked with the elite. Isabella didn't do video calls because she was scouting in Bali or at Fashion Week in Milan. She only communicated via email and text. The mother forwarded us invoices from Isabella. The numbers were astronomical. $10,000 for flowers, $15,000 to hold the venue. I need you to wire the funds to Isabella's account directly, the mother told me over the phone. She doesn't take credit cards due to the processing fees on such large amounts. It's standard for luxury vendors. I hesitated. In my line of work, wire transfer only is a neon sign screaming fraud. Let me speak to Isabella, I said. I want to go over the contract before I send 25 grand. She's busy. Don't be difficult, the mother snapped. Do you want to ruin this for your bride? Do you want to look cheap? My wife was stressed, pulling double shifts at the hospital, and she just wanted the tension to end. Please, she whispered to me that night. Mom says Isabella is the best. Let's just pay it and get it done. Against every professional instinct I had, I transferred the first $25,000. Over the next 4 months, the planning process was a nightmare of exclusion. Every time I asked for a menu tasting, the mother said Isabella handled it. Every time I asked for the venue layout, the mother said Isabella has the blueprints. Stop micromanaging. The entitlement ramped up. The mother began demanding we invite her business associates, people my wife had never met. She demanded a specific photographer who cost $8,000. She demanded my wife lose 10 pounds because the dress Isabella found is unforgiving. She was treating the wedding like a coronation for herself. I started getting a bad feeling in my stomach. Not the nervous groom's jitters, the professional, the numbers don't add up feeling. I asked the mother for Isabella's contact info again. She gave me an email address. I sent a request. Isabella, please forward the countersigned contract for the venue and the liability insurance certificate for the catering. The reply came 3 hours later. Darling, don't bore me with paperwork. It's all filed. Trust the process. The tone. It was familiar. It was condescending. It used the word darling. I went to my home office and shut the door. I pulled up the email headers. I traced the IP address of the sender. It wasn't Milan. It wasn't Bali. It was a residential ISP in our city. Specifically, it geolocated to a block that contained the mother's house. I didn't tell my wife yet. I needed to be absolute. I took the bank routing number for Isabella's account, the one I'd wired $25,000 to, and subsequently another $15,000 for catering deposits. I ran a search on the LLC associated with the account, Elite Event Curation LLC. It was registered 3 days before the mother introduced us to Isabella. The registered agent? The mother. The business address? A P.O. box 2 miles from her house. There was no Isabella. The mother had created a fake persona, a fake company, and was funneling our wedding budget directly into her own personal account. She wasn't planning a wedding. She was embezzling from her own daughter. But why? She lived in a massive house. She drove a Mercedes. I dug deeper. Public court records are a beautiful thing. It turns out the mother was drowning. 2 lawsuits for unpaid contractor work on her house, a lien from the IRS for unpaid capital gains tax. Her wealth was a house of cards, and she was robbing us to keep the lights on and maintain her image. I sat on this information for 2 days. I watched my wife cry because her mother told her she looked bloated at the fitting. I watched my wife thank her mother for working so hard with Isabella. It broke my heart. But I knew if I just showed her the papers, the mother would spin it. She'd claim she was holding the money for safekeeping or that I was crazy. I needed undeniable proof of malicious intent. I set a trap. I emailed Isabella. Hey, we've decided to cancel the ice sculpture and the live string quartet. We need to cut $5,000 from the budget. Please refund that amount to the account on file. The reply? Deposits are non-refundable. Read the contract. I replied, there is no contract. I never signed one. Refund the money or I contact the authorities. Radio silence. Then my phone rang. It was the mother. Isabella just called me, she shrieked. She is furious. How dare you threaten her? She's going to cancel the whole wedding. If she cancels, she has to return the money, I said calmly. No, the mother yelled. She won't. You've ruined it. You've insulted her. She's keeping the money as a penalty. That was it, the confirmation. I drove home and sat my wife down. I had a folder. Honey, I said, there is no Isabella. I showed her the LLC registration. I showed her the IP traces. I showed her the bank transfers where the money moved from Elite Event Curation directly into the mother's personal checking account and then immediately out to pay the IRS and a credit card company. My wife stared at the papers. She didn't scream. She went completely pale. The betrayal was so absolute it short-circuited her ability to process it. She stole our wedding? My wife whispered. She told me she loved the venue. She told me she was so happy. She didn't book the venue, I said gently. I called the country club this morning. They have no reservation for us. The date is open. She took $40,000 and she booked nothing. My wife put her head in her hands and sobbed. It was a guttural, painful sound that I will never forget. Then she stopped. She looked up, and her eyes weren't sad anymore. They were cold. I want her to pay, she said. We didn't confront the mother, not yet. We went to a lawyer. We drafted a demand letter, but we held on to it. We came up with a plan. I called the mother. I put it on speaker so my wife could hear. "You're right," I said, sounding defeated. "I messed up with Isabella. If the money's gone, it's gone. We can't afford the wedding anymore. We're going to have to cancel." The mother paused. I could hear the gears turning. If we canceled, she didn't have to produce a wedding. She could keep the money and blame it on non-refundable deposits. "Oh, you foolish boy," she sighed, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Well, it's a tragedy, but perhaps it's for the best. You clearly aren't ready for this level of society." "Yeah, we'll just go to the courthouse, just the two of us." "Probably for the best," she said. "I'll let the relatives know it's off." She sounded relieved. She thought she had gotten away with the perfect crime. She had $40,000 and she had a scapegoat, me, to blame for the cancellation. The moment we hung up, I went to work. We had 2 months left. I took out a personal loan. It hurt, but I wasn't going to let this woman win. We went back to our original plan, the historic library, the 80 people. We contacted every vendor ourselves. We explained the situation, minus the fraud details, just saying we had a crisis and begged for rush service. We booked everything. But here is where the dynamic gets complex. My wife wanted her father there. Her father, 55M, is divorced from the mother and had been beaten down by her for years before he finally escaped. We invited him. We invited my family. We invited our friends. We did not invite the mother. We sent out digital invitations with a password-protected RSVP site. We strictly instructed everyone, due to a severe family conflict, do not mention the wedding date or location to mother's name. This is a safety issue. People talked. Of course they talked. But mostly they were shocked. 3 days before the wedding, the mother found out. I don't know who leaked it, maybe a distant cousin, but she found out we were getting married at the library on Saturday. She didn't call us. She didn't apologize. She went nuclear. I received a call from the library venue manager. "Sir, a woman claiming to be your mother just called. She said she's canceling the event because the bride has been in a car accident." My blood ran cold. "My bride is sitting right next to me," I said. "That woman is not authorized to make changes. I am the only contact." "Understood," the manager said. "We require a password for any further changes." She didn't stop there. She called the caterer and told them I had developed severe seafood allergy and to scrap the main course. I caught this because the caterer emailed me. But her final move, the one that sealed her fate? She called the police the morning of the wedding. She filed a report claiming I had physically assaulted her the night before and that she had jewelry missing. Jewelry she claimed I stole to pay for the secret wedding. I was getting a shave at the barber when 2 officers walked in. "Are you my name?" "Yes." "We need to ask you some questions regarding a domestic disturbance involving mother's name." My heart hammered, but I remained calm. "Officers, I haven't seen that woman in 2 months. I have been at my house, which has Ring cameras, and then at the hotel since last night, which has CCTV. I can account for every minute of my whereabouts." I pulled up the app on my phone. I showed them the footage of me playing FIFA with my groomsmen at the time she claimed I assaulted her. The officers watched the video. They looked at each other. "She filed a false report," one of them muttered. "She's trying to stop my wedding. She embezzled $40,000 from us, and she's trying to keep us from spending the rest." I showed them the file on my phone, the Isabella evidence, the bank transfers, the emails. The officer's demeanor changed instantly. "Sir, enjoy your wedding," the officer said. "We'll handle this." The ceremony was beautiful. My wife looked like an angel. The library was lit by candlelight. It was intimate, real, and devoid of the pretension the mother craved. But I knew she was coming. Narcissists can't stand being excluded. She wouldn't just let us get married. She would want to make a scene. She would want to be the victim. I had hired private security, 2 massive guys, ex-military. I gave them a photo of the mother. "She does not cross the threshold," I ordered. "If she tries, remove her." We were at the reception, just finishing our first dance. The doors to the main hall banged open. There she was. She was wearing a white dress, a literal bridal gown. She screamed, "How dare you? How dare you cut me out of my own daughter's life after all I've done for you?" The room went silent. My wife gripped my hand. She was trembling. The mother marched forward, looking like a deranged wraith. "I paid for this. This is my event, you ungrateful little." She didn't finish the sentence. A security guard stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, you need to leave," one said. "Don't touch me. I'm the mother of the bride." She swung her purse at the guard. That was assault. But the cherry on top? The police officers, the ones she had lied to earlier, were waiting in the lobby. They had followed up on the false report and the evidence I gave them. As the security dragged her back towards the entrance, the officers stepped forward. We couldn't hear the words clearly, but we saw the action. They spun her around. They cuffed her. She was screaming, "He stole my jewelry! He's a con man!"
Artist. The officer said something that made her freeze. He pointed to the security camera in the lobby. She was arrested in a white wedding dress in front of 80 of our friends and family. We didn't let it ruin the night. The DJ, a legend, played Hit the Road Jack as they took her away. The room erupted in laughter and applause. My wife cried for a minute, then she drank a glass of champagne and danced until her feet bled. The legal fallout was swift and brutal. First, the criminal charges. The mother was charged with filing a false police report and grand larceny for the $40,000. Because she used wire transfers and email to facilitate the fraud, the district attorney tacked on wire fraud charges. That's a felony. Second, the civil suit. We sued her for the $40,000 plus punitive damages for emotional distress and the cost of the second wedding. And the twist? During the discovery phase of the lawsuit, my forensic skills came in handy again. I found out she had taken out a credit card in my wife's name 3 years ago and racked up $20,000 in debt. That's identity theft. We didn't settle. We went for the throat. The judge was not amused by a mother stealing from her child to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford. She was sentenced to 18 months in state prison for the fraud and larceny charges, with 5 years probation. She was ordered to pay restitution, which forced the sale of her house. The house she loved more than her daughter? Gone. The social status she craved? Destroyed. The local papers had a field day with the "socialite mom arrested in wedding gown" headline. It's been a year. My wife and I are happy. We're broke, paying off the loan for the wedding, but we're free. My wife is in therapy, unlearning the guilt her mother installed in her. It's a long road. Sometimes she feels bad that her mother is in prison, but then we look at the photos. We see the joy on our faces, and we remember that the person who tried to destroy that joy is now sitting in a 6x8 cell wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of a designer gown. She wanted to be the center of attention. I made sure she was, just not the way she planned. Subscribe for more tips on how to use forensic accounting to dismantle your toxic family members.